everyone, this is Neil King for Random Acts of Cartooning, asking the age-old question, who wins in a fight, Darth Vader or Santa Claus? But first,
Okay, so the influence for this episode is Gene Colan, and specifically for this episode, The Tomb of Dracula. Believe it or not, for a holiday thing, we're going to do that. But this is one of my essential books. I really love them because they have the line art, not the color with these. And when you're talking about someone who's as great as Gene Colan and Tom Palmer, this is what we're talking about. This is the great work that they did. So if you've never seen Gene Colan work, which you probably have and you may not know it, it's all about atmosphere. So Tom Palmer, what he brought to it would be this ability. And I feel like at the beginning, these first ones, I don't think Tom Palmer was there yet. And then once he comes in, the work just is just spectacular. Like everything that you see with it, great contrast, heavy, just like that image. Look at his face. It's kind of photorealistic, and he's really well known for this kind of work, but expressionistic. Everything that is happening is these major contrasts. And I think that's just some of the most spectacular and beautiful work out there. But his Colan doesn't work for everyone. All the inkers that he's there with, he works with certain ones, and one of the great ones is with Tom Palmer. So I'm constantly looking at his work and trying to find the parts for myself that fit into it. Like Tom Palmer brings in these kind of zipatones, get this spectacular view. It works so well in so many places. Sometimes, they're telling a lot of stories. There's a lot of things going on. But when you see some of these shots, I'm just blown away by how it works and why, for some artists, they could never do some of these scenes. But he does Daredevil stuff too, so I'll show that. One of my favorite comics of all time is with Gene Colan and Daredevil. Isn't that beautiful? These kind of characters. So he's the one. Gene Colan, the great one. Influence for Darth Vader versus Santa Claus.
okay, getting started with this image. This is a typical convention sketch project where someone will approach me and say, could you have this character fighting another character? Now that could be Batman versus Superman or Batman versus Robin or whomever. But sometimes you get really funny ones and they'll have certain characters against others. So this being the holiday season, I thought it would be fun to do a Darth Vader versus Santa Claus. And my big inspiration for this one is Gene Colan. And Gene Colan is one of my favorite artists from really, he was biggest time, I guess, he was in the 70s. So for me, his work has that type of expressionistic style to it, where the figures are sometimes elongated, perspective is all over the place. But as I've shown in showing some of his work, that the stuff that you really get a sense of is atmosphere and the feeling that only kind of he does. So very inspired by him, and I feel like my sketch style has a lot of things to do with how Gene Colan would handle superheroes and stuff. So what I've done here is I have to kind of set them up, and I'm in this position where they're right next to each other, and you want to see both of the characters. So I'm just laying in the shapes, knowing that they're going to have those lightsabers across from each other, and you want it to be enough that you can see that it's them. I don't want to see the back of Darth Vader or the back of Santa Claus. So when I'm doing this, all I want to do is say, well, what happens if, as there's a 3/4 view of Santa Claus and a profile view. So that's what I'm kind of laying in right now. He's really, to me, the Santa Claus character. I'm really kind of making him like an Obi-Wan Kenobi. So he's kind of, I'm going to have him with the hat, but I'm going to use that kind of cloak that I've seen on Santa Claus sometimes. It's like a longer one. So to me, it's more Jedi looking. So I like the idea of Santa Claus being kind of a Jedi Knight. And I'm sure somebody's thought of this before. I haven't looked it up, but if you have an idea of it, these kind of things, you always think, oh, I've got the only one. That more than likely somebody's has had this happen, I'm sure, many times. But for me, I'm approaching it like I have not seen anything like this before, which I don't think I have. So I'm just trying to get that kind of feel of this. So I'm going to speed up this part after here so that you can see, I'm just laying in some of the basic pencils. Because again, if this is a finished type of image for a convention, I am just trying to get in the major parts. Trying to do Darth Vader's hard because of that headpiece. It's so weird. There's so many little intricate things in there. But if you just get a few of the good angles, he reads as Darth Vader. Now with Santa Claus, with this one, I really am thinking of Obi-Wan Kenobi, a mixture of that and Santa Claus. So I'm not making him like this jolly guy. Like I want him to be more knight-like. So I get all the pencils in there. Now again, I'm going to go in with my brushes. But for this, I use that ink pen that I use with it's waterproof ink, or it's supposed to be water resistant, but it's pretty waterproof. And so I just go in and I get the major detail. This is all this pen is for. So when I'm getting in there, I'm really just trying my best to kind of think about how I simplify a very complex looking mask that Darth Vader has. So I'm trying to keep it within my style, but try to be true to the character enough that you would be like, yeah, that's Darth Vader. I've seen different images of him, illustrations of him, and I feel like people play around with the images a lot. So I'm going to try to do that too. I want to kind of keep that helmet looking kind of how it is. But for me, like, that's really not what it's about. It's more about getting the feeling of Darth Vader. And I think once I get in all the heavier brushwork, that you'll see pretty easily that it was Darth Vader, and he'll read like that. So he's got to have the lightsaber with the two hands on there. He's got these heavy gloves that I tend to draw with him. So all the detail comes in eventually for some of that stuff. But for me, it's just like major parts of the fingers, how they're going to go around that lightsaber, two hands above, one hand above the other, to see if it reads well. And then I'll go in with the image of the Santa Claus character the same way. Just little indications. I try to look, when I'm doing these images at a convention, I usually look online on my phone, and I just try to get like a basic idea of what that of what the costumes look like. So I've drawn Santa Claus a million different ways. So this way, it's not a big leap for me to draw him being inspired by some type of a Jedi kind of feel, the Obi-Wan thing. But you want to give him the accents, that big beard and everything. I'm going to limit the color for this one also, as I always seem to do. I can't help myself. I like the limited color more so than the big bright colors that you would get for an overall piece. especially for a quick sketch that you would do for this. And again, just getting in all the little details. Do the fingers seem like they work? Would they, holding? I have him one-handing holding the lightsaber, and I'm just going to kind of lay all that stuff in. I feel like if he's kind of got, I see him as kind of have gloves on, so they'll eventually be red. So I just want to, again, get that feel and see how his, all the rest of this stuff happens. It's nice having this fountain pen to get all this little detail that I used to kind of have to do with the more fine-lined markers, which I'm not in love with. They're fine, but they're not great to me for my style. So with this, so much more like how I draw things. So anyway, so I'm gonna moving in, just adding along. The pencils were just barely there. If you really think of them, they're more shapes. And now it's more like I'm trying to figure out some of this stuff. I'm gonna move towards my next level of brush. It's a little thicker, because I know once I kind of get in there, I'm going to be going after with my Pentel brush pen. That's going to be the dry brush stuff, and that's kind of more where my style really comes. But I have to get this detail, or it would be difficult to understand what's going on if it was all the one style. So just kind of laying it in. Now I'm really kind of getting the figure down. I'm not going to make him super big, but I'm not going to make him tiny either. And so again, how does that arm work? Do you believe that that's how long the arm would be? Just these folds, to get the major folds in there, and then I'll go in there with the brush pen to get it. And you can see, like, there's times where I'm like, should I put more in? And then I'm like, the decision usually happens with me. I'm just like, no, I know what I'm going to do once I get in there. Like his cape, I'm going to have that cape just burst past him. Like volumes of that cape is everywhere. Anybody who wears the capes, I tend to push them a little bit further than just like a simple little cape. They kind of have a life of their own. So I'm adding in little parts to this costume. Again, I've seen him in a few different things, but I feel like he's just kind of layered. Little electronics on the front. Not much there that I'll show. But I'm just reminding myself, like, this is where I'm going here. I know how much more I'm going to need after that. So sometimes I'll put in with a lightsaber little bits. Like, my idea is like to cross them over, show that there was a little contact, little burst, and then do it all with color after that. Now with this, I tried to go a little faster with this. I've sped this up 2 times faster, so hopefully the image holds up while I'm doing this. So yeah, this is the brush pen. And with the brush pen, I'm really getting big areas. This is the Gene Colan effect to me. Like, it's really Tom Palmer who would ink him. But when I do it, I'm just like thinking about the light source, keeping it consistent, and just pushing in all these darks, super dark areas. So you get the sense of what's going to happen eventually when I go in those colors. If I wasn't doing this with color afterwards, I don't think I would work in this same technique. But because I know I'm going to put, the color on top and with the black that I use to make everything darker, I could very well blot out a lot of this image. So with some of the Tom Palmer and Gene Colan stuff, they would just blot out full, like, half characters. Like, most of it is just coming into the dark, and then they'd have a refined line that would come after that. So I love the effect, and it definitely gives you an atmosphere. And I think that's what'll make this piece, hopefully, an interesting piece to look at. I'm just blotting them in. Again, this is 2 times the speed, so when you see me working like this is not me working this fast. And I think it has a certain look already. And once I kind of get in there with the color, I think I think it'll be a lot more interesting with the variations. Because again, if I was going to do this just as a black and white piece, I would probably go into the background a little bit with more darks. But this, I'm just kind of leaving things open. It's a lot of black in this. But I think it makes it kind of interesting. And I can see it in my head. I've done these so many times. I know where this is going to go. So color is going to be up next.
Okay, remember it's the holiday season, so make sure that you go in looking under with this episode. You'll see all of the books that I do, from Shock to Forgotten Planet. These are adult books. I also have kids' books, all ages. That's what all these episodes are all about. People to see all the work that I've been doing throughout the years and the new books that I'm doing. But if you have anyone who's interested in all these kind of things, go over to my Amazon store and then get something. Remember, the links are in uh, the image below that you're watching on YouTube. Thanks.
As you can see, I'm just laying in the red value first. I'm going to keep this almost all monochromatic, but I am going to put a little green in, that complementary, just for the lightsabers. You know how they're usually different colors. So for me, almost everything is touched with at least a light value of the that red. So even with the Santa Claus, with his white beard and parts of that thing, I want to keep some of it pink, but I do want to keep the white because I think it reads a little bit better as white. So I'm just going in really light, but getting the sense that you can see the atmosphere is starting to happen. I'm going to go darker with some of the areas. This is with Darth Vader because he wears black. Most of the time when you see his character, it's either a cool gray or a warm gray. So if you go on the bottom of it and make it pink or red, you'll have a warm gray when you put that black on top of it. And I kind of like that with his character. I like to make him into a character that's a warm gray and black character. So you can see it's all about the contrast here. Again, here's just working with that red, bringing it around, just spotting those colors inside those areas. I feel like they're too light, but I know that when I go into this, I'm eventually going to have to bump this up with the black, but that will take it over. And I don't want to be too much. I do want to have a certain amount of variety. But if you think about the Santa Claus costume, it tends to be, it's all red, red and black mostly. Sometimes they'll put his gloves or something, it'll be green or something. I'm not going to do that with this. So a lot of this bottom area is just the Darth Vader cloak that's going to overlap with the Santa Claus. But now all spotted reds that I have inside there. I am in my mind trying to think, am I going to use, how much green is going to be in this? And I don't think I'm going to use much. I don't want it to be a whole complementary image. I just want that the part that's going to be the other lightsaber is going to be in the green. So putting a little background, establishing it. This is an 11 by 14, 80-pound paper. That's what I use for sketches at conventions. And I'm just going to keep it mostly on that page. So if you're wondering how big some of this stuff is, these are just my basic Prang semi-moist watercolors that I use at the conventions. They're great for being on the road anywhere, and you can just, you have your varieties of colors and you just mix anything you want off of that. So then I'm going to start coming in with some of this green. Just little aspects, get it onto the front of each of them so you can imagine that there would be a little bit of the light on both of the Santa Claus face and the helmet of Darth Vader. So that's all I'm going to do, though. I'm not making it a part of the background. I don't want it anywhere else, but I do want it to be on the other pieces. Once it's there, and I've established it, then I'm just going to go in with that black. But right here, just little bits so you can see it. Complementary colors. They always work. I could have made it blue, but I just kind of wanted to keep them. And it's a holiday kind of image too, I guess, right? So why not have the holiday colors for this specific piece? I'm going in with the darker areas now. So right away, you're going to get way more contrast with this. But all of if you think of it as how this tone goes, we now have a light and a medium. So now I'm working on those darker areas and then the truest, darkest areas at the last part. That'll be the dry brush stuff. But right here, I'm just kind of going in with a light dark on top of it. And you can see right away, I think it reads better, or he's more interesting looking, Darth Vader, with this kind of an idea, instead of him just being black. That's for my style, not so many other artists. It works so many different ways, and they look really cool. It's a great designed character. So when I do all this stuff, I really, you have to look back on whoever designed this stuff is just, great character. But hopefully, I mean, it's kind of looking a little more Gene Colan right now because of the atmosphere. Now, they would have done it with flat colors, but for me, it's the way that the watercolors work. I feel like that's when you get a little more sense of a Gene Colan with the one work I do. I don't think my stuff looks necessarily a lot like Gene Colan, but you can see where the inspiration is coming from. All right, so again, this is sped up, so I'm really making my way through these pretty quickly, and just adding contrast everywhere I'm looking. Are the characters starting to burst out? I want to get some of that great dry brush feeling, so that you see that there's a burst when the lightsabers are apparently touching onto each other. So that side of the face, the back of the hat, just a little bit, and it just kind of gives it a little bit more of a sense of drama, I think. It's not so cartoony as it was when it first began, but I'm just, I don't want to overdo it with the black, but I think it really, for this kind of a genre, I think it's the appropriate way for my stuff to look when I'm doing it. And I think it gives it a little bit more of a finished look when I do it too. You always think it kind of looks finished until you get into these stages. So again, I'm looking at it. This is moving pretty quickly. I'm almost done. I know I just have these last little bits to go on. And no matter what I do, after I've done all of the brushwork, and that I'm happy with the brushwork, I tend to go back in with that brush, the pen, and just putting in some stronger lines to pop on the last parts of it. These are the finished touches. Again, I think it's successful and it's fun. And if you don't see these characters together much, I hope that it's fun to see these kind of things. I like the idea of putting them next to each other. I'll try to do more of these types of sketches for the episodes, where I'm thinking of a theme and a parody like this, but try to take it a little more seriously and do a real kind of finish with it as much as I can. There's a nice close-up looking of it. So thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching this episode, and we will see you the next time.